Olga Tellis v. Bombay Municipal Corporation, AIR 1986 SC 180. Parties: Plaintiff, Olga Tellis and other pavement dwellers. Defendant, Bombay Municipal Corporation. Facts: Olga Tellis, a journalist, along with a group of pavement and slum dwellers, filed a writ petition in the Supreme Court of India, challenging the impending eviction of slum dwellers by the Bombay Municipal Corporation, BMC. The BMC planned to evict the slum dwellers and pavement dwellers from the streets of Bombay, as their settlements were deemed illegal and were obstructing public spaces. The petitioners argued that the forced eviction without providing an alternative place of residence violated their right to livelihood, which they contended was an integral part of the right to life under Article 21 of the Indian Constitution. They further argued that the state's action was arbitrary and discriminatory, thus violating Article 14, right to equality. The state defended its decision, asserting that the pavement dwellers were encroachers on public land and that their eviction was necessary for public welfare and order. It claimed that the right to livelihood did not explicitly fall under the purview of Article 21, and that the squatters had no legal right to remain on public property. Issues before the court: 1. Whether the right to livelihood is a part of the right to life under Article 21 of the Constitution. 2. Whether the eviction of slum and pavement dwellers without an alternative arrangement violates their fundamental rights. 3. Whether the state can evict slum dwellers from public land without violating their rights under Articles 14 and 21. Decision of the court. The Supreme Court delivered a landmark judgment that redefined the scope of the right to life under Article 21. The court held that the right to life includes the right to livelihood, reasoning that without the means to live, the right to life itself is rendered meaningless. Thus, the eviction of pavement dwellers without providing them with any alternative shelter would result in a violation of Article 21. However, the court did not grant a blanket immunity to pavement dwellers from eviction. While recognizing the right to livelihood as part of the right to life, the court acknowledged that the government has the authority to remove encroachments from public spaces in the interest of public welfare. The judgment established that any eviction must be carried out in a manner consistent with principles of fairness and justice. Specifically, the state must provide reasonable notice to the affected individuals and make efforts to offer alternative shelter before evicting them. The court also held that although the pavement dwellers were occupying public land illegally, their actions were driven by necessity. The court recognized that these individuals had migrated to cities in search of livelihood, and for many of them, the pavements were the only available place to live. Therefore, the state must balance the rights of individuals with the need to maintain public order and property. The court directed that the pavement dwellers should not be evicted without a proper hearing and should be provided with alternative housing arrangements to ensure that their right to livelihood was protected. Case analysis. Olga Tellis v. Bombay Municipal Corporation is a landmark case that significantly expanded the interpretation of the right to life under Article 21 of the Constitution. The Supreme Court's decision was notable for its empathetic approach towards the plight of the urban poor, particularly slum and pavement dwellers who lacked access to basic housing. By interpreting the right to life as encompassing the right to livelihood, the court acknowledged the socio-economic realities of millions of Indians who live in poverty and depend on informal, precarious means of employment. This recognition marked a shift in constitutional jurisprudence, as it brought socio-economic rights within the framework of fundamental rights. The court linked the right to life with the right to livelihood, housing, and shelter, all of which are essential for a dignified existence. The court's approach to balancing the rights of individuals with the state's duty to maintain public order was pragmatic. While it recognized the need for the state to remove encroachments from public land, it imposed a duty on the state to act with fairness and reasonableness. This included providing adequate notice, conducting a proper hearing, and making efforts to offer alternative shelter. This aspect of the judgment ensured that eviction policies were not arbitrary and that the state's actions were subject to judicial scrutiny. In addition to expanding the scope of Article 21, the case reinforced the application of Article 14, right to equality. The court held that the state's actions must be non-arbitrary and must uphold the principles of equality. The eviction of slum dwellers without a fair process would violate their right to equality, as they are among the most vulnerable members of society. The judgment also reflects the growing recognition of housing as a fundamental human right. While the Indian Constitution does not explicitly guarantee the right to housing, the court's decision in this case laid the groundwork for recognizing housing as a basic human need, essential for the exercise of other rights. Importance. The Olga Tellis case is significant for several reasons. Expansion of Article 21. This case marked a major development in the interpretation of Article 21, as it established the right to livelihood as an essential part of the right to life. The judgment emphasized that without livelihood, the right to life becomes an empty promise. This broadened the scope of Article 21 beyond mere survival, highlighting the need for economic security and dignity. Recognition of socio-economic rights. Although the Constitution does not explicitly provide for socio-economic rights such as housing and employment, the court's judgment in this case paved the way for recognizing these rights within the framework of fundamental rights. This decision reinforced the idea that civil and political rights cannot be fully realized without socio-economic rights. Procedural fairness in evictions. The court's directive that evictions must be carried out with proper notice, a fair hearing, and alternative arrangements for the displaced established procedural safeguards for the urban poor. This aspect of the judgment continues to influence policies related to slum rehabilitation and urban planning, ensuring that the rights of the poor are considered in development projects. Impact on urban governance. The case had a significant impact on the way state authorities approach urban governance, particularly with respect to informal settlements and slums. By recognizing the right to livelihood, the judgment underscored the importance of integrating the needs of the poor into urban planning and development strategies. Judicial activism and social justice. The Olga Tellis case is an example of judicial activism, where the Supreme Court intervened to protect the rights of marginalized sections of society. The case reflects the court's commitment to ensuring social justice and promoting human dignity, especially for vulnerable populations who lack access to basic resources. Legacy in housing rights. Although the case did not explicitly recognize a constitutional right to housing, it laid the groundwork for future judgments that expanded the right to life to include housing and shelter. The principles established in this case continue to influence legal discourse and government policy related to housing and urban development. Olga Tellis v. Bombay Municipal Corporation is a landmark judgment that redefined the scope of the right to life under Article 21 of the Indian Constitution. By recognizing the right to livelihood as an integral part of the right to life, the court expanded constitutional protections for the urban poor. The case set important procedural safeguards for evictions and highlighted the importance of balancing individual rights with public welfare. The judgment remains a cornerstone in Indian constitutional jurisprudence, particularly in the context of socio-economic rights and the protection of vulnerable populations from arbitrary state actions.